Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Welcome in. Welcome to today's session. Again, I'm not by myself. I'm joined by Summer Craze Fowler. So she's an accomplished cybersecurity executive and she's currently the CISO of Torc Robotics. So welcome in, Summer. Welcome in.
Thank
Say
you. Thank
hello.
you so much for having me.
Awesome. Awesome. So before I go into today's session, you guys, I read about Summer and she has extensive experience, not just in cybersecurity, but in the educational sector and the government. And so Summer is someone that I would say she's kind of the more you look, the less you see in reverse. And you guys are going to witness that, okay? So Summer, there's a lot of people who here are wondering, how did you get into cybersecurity? How did you, I know you've been a CISO, you're still a CISO now, but you've been a CIO. How did you start?
Yeah, it's so fun. I've been a part of cybersecurity since before it was called cybersecurity.
Mm,
Back in the day, we called it information assurance.
mm,
And I was living in the Baltimore Annapolis area, and I was working at Northrop Grumman as a software and systems engineering lead. I ended up meeting my husband, my now husband, there. And I said, it's time for me to branch out. We shouldn't work at the same place. We should, diversify our portfolio. And I jumped into Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab and started working with the NSA and the Department of Defense on building their plans for information assurance. And that's what, became cybersecurity. And I have been in the field ever since. So it's been a lot of years. It's been 20 plus years now that I've really been in information assurance and cybersecurity, seen different types. So I went from working with the government and working very closely on building out the portfolio for what the DoD was going to spend money on to secure weapons platforms, all kinds of things. Then I went to Carnegie Mellon University, where I was working also with the government, but at this point we were the CERT program. So think incident response and all of the things that happen from that standpoint. We were also building resilience and risk and cybersecurity models. And I did that for 11 years and I loved working there. I also was teaching, as we can talk about later. But the decision point came to me when I said, I want to know if all these things that I'm building with my teams and that my teams are building, do they actually work? I need to get back into private industry and see, like, can I eat the dog food? And does it actually taste good? And does it work? And so Pittsburgh is known as Robotics Row. There was a job at a self-driving car company, and they were looking for someone to lead their cybersecurity. And I jumped back into the private sector there, and I've been in self-driving ever since. So it's been 8 years, and I love it. But I did learn that the dog food is very different on the other side, and there's a lot of tailoring that needs to happen. So yeah, that's been my career.
It's amazing. That's amazing. So oftentimes when I talk to leaders like yourself and they're telling us their journey, it sounds easy. Oh, you were in software and then you moved over to the government, working with defense, right? But it's not. So let's break that down a little bit deeper. So
Yeah.
what was your experience like as you transitioned from your role in software to moving to government? What were some of the challenges that you experienced as you were transitioning up until you got into a leadership role in cybersecurity?
Yeah, I would say that what started, I was young. I was very inexperienced when, I mean, I'd only had 5 years under my belt of working in software. And I was jumping into a role where at the time it was literally a $2 billion budget that I was helping to prioritize for the Department of Defense. And so it was a lot of finding those mentors and sponsors who I could work with and who were willing to work with me. And frankly, it was very organic. It's not like I went and said, "Oh, will you be my mentor or sponsor?" Which I actually think is great. I love it when people do that. But it was more finding gaps, looking around very carefully and saying, "There's a gap here that someone needs to fill," and stepping in and being willing to fill it. And then people would recognize that motivation, that ambition, And, I had people I would ask, like, hey, is this a great path? What do you think? Should I be looking in this area? And so I wouldn't even say it was difficult, but you just have to pay attention.
Mm.
Also can't sit back and just wait for it to come to you. You really need to lean forward towards, hey, this is a need, and I'm going to be the one that helps fill it.
I love that. I love that. So a combination of being proactive, having mentorship, and at the same time having that confidence to go after what
Yeah,
it is that you want. Let's talk a little bit about that because oftentimes when I'm interviewing women, especially ambitious women like yourselves,
yeah,
there's certain characters that I notice in them. And
yeah.
one of that is courage
Mhm.
and being able to overcome that fear. So give us an example of a time in your career where you actually experienced that fear to move to the next level and what you did to be able to overcome that.
So there's a quote that someone gave to me, and I really loved this, and it's from another female. Her name's Bobby Stempley. Folks may have recognized the name. I was going to be in front of Congress as an expert witness, and it was my first time speaking as an expert witness, first time speaking in the House, and I was feeling nervous, but I was like, I'm a public speaker, I can do this, but I was feeling the nerves a little, and she pulled me aside and she said, I know that you're probably nervous about this. And she said, but what I want you to remember is you're in that room because you are the expert. And so own that. You
Yes.
are the
Yes.
expert. And part of that is also being able to recognize what you don't know and not being afraid of what you don't know. And that has resonated with me. Now, that was probably midway through my career that happened. Before that, I think the courage that it takes is just recognizing that it's okay to stumble,
Mm.
right? And kids do this all the time. If a gymnast misses a cartwheel or a back handspring and they fall, they just get up and do it again, right? And we need to do that.
Yeah.
And it's okay to do that. And so I think that's what we have to really think about is the courage to just get back up and keep going.
I love that, especially the part of it is okay to fall, because I think
Mhm.
a lot of us, when we get into something new, it's always, no, we need it to be perfect. If we fall, something is going to happen, right? And
Yeah.
from what you're saying, it's just normalizing that,
Yes.
normalizing the fact that that could happen and keep moving forward.
Yeah. It's also learning to surround yourself with the people who fill your own gaps.
Mm.
And that's something that is really powerful to understand about yourself and about what the needs of your company or whatever it is that you're doing, what those needs are. An example of that is I am very, very visionary, very, very strategic, and I'm not going to get into a lot of the weeds. But I then need to hire people who are working for me who do that. Right, and then also talk to them about, all right, what are your goals? Do you want to stay deeply technical and understanding, or do you want to move into a role where you're more strategic and visionary? And so then there it becomes a cycle of trying to figure out, okay, who's going to fill these gaps and how do I help them advance as well? But I mean, surrounding myself with the right people on my teams has been what's created the success.
You are the third or fourth person that I've spoken to in the past 3 weeks that has mentioned this specific thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's something worth reiterating because oftentimes we think we need to do everything,
Yeah.
which creates this unnecessary pressure. And
Yeah.
so, from someone like you who's been there, done that, saying that, oh, okay, no, no, I need to get the right people in the room, I think that's something that a lot of people will be able to tap into.
So I used to be that way. I used to work through lunch. I
Mm.
used to think the harder I worked, the better it was going to be for my career. And it's true, you still need to work hard, you still need to do things, but I started observing and watching what other successful people did. And I actually gave the commencement address at the University of Pittsburgh's graduate school for computer science. I
Mhm.
graduated from there. And they asked me to come back and give the commencement address. And so I was thinking, what advice do I want to give these students as they're embarking on these careers? And something I said was take lunch. And
Mm.
and I don't mean take lunches and go eat. That's good. Like, you gotta eat. You gotta do that. But I was eating at my desk. I was eating there. And I looked around and I saw these very successful people, mainly men, just because of the field, who were using lunch as a way to network and get to know other people. It was a working lunch, don't get me wrong. You're still
Mhm.
working. You're still game faces on, and they weren't doing it all the time, but once a week, maybe once every other week, they were literally using their lunch as that networking experience. That is powerful. It is important. You have to do that type of thing and realize that's not working any less hard. It's working in a smart way and in a way that helps you learn more about other people, learn about the company, learn about opportunities. There's a whole bunch to that. So I highly encourage, and I know a lot of women do it. They work through lunch. They get in early so that they can leave early to go to whatever. Don't do it. Use that time to work smart.
Oh, oh, Summer, this is just getting so good because I feel like if we're going to be honest, I feel like a lot of ambitious women, we kind of miss the memo on understanding certain tactics and strategies that we can use to rise up in our careers. Again,
Uh-huh.
like you said, eating on your desk, eating by yourself, thinking that you have to be the one to always do everything. And let's park here a little bit because this is something a lot of women and people, leaders in general, struggle with.
Yes.
So you've been in software, you've been in government, you've held and still holding a lot.
Mhm.
So how do you manage? Because we know that cybersecurity leaders carry a lot mentally, emotionally. How do you handle the pressure?
So this one can be very a sensitive thing that I can say, and I don't want people to misconstrue it. But it goes even way before, you think about career and think about your life. You have to surround yourself with the people who are going to help you navigate and support it. So I'm going to get like really real on this one. I'm a cisgendered woman. I'm married to a man. We have 3 children together. So I'm going to speak about it in terms of my spouse, but this could be a significant other. This could be your friend group. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily married, but you have to also surround yourself with those people who are going to be a part of that success and be a part of that network. My husband does probably more than 50% of the home stuff. He's the cook. He has his own job. He has a very successful career. He loves to cook. I hate to cook. He hates to clean. I love to clean. We've found a very good balance. He doesn't talk about work at home. I blather on for an hour a night telling him everything. But we have that rhythm and we have what each other needs. If I have to travel, he's taking care of the kids and vice versa. We've also hired someone to help, a nanny who helps us. My kids are older now, but throughout them being young. So you have to structure your life for that success. And it can sound unpopular to say it. You need to pick the right partners in your life to do that. So it's just a fundamental to me. I would not be where I am if I had picked a different life partner. And so that to me is listen up, ladies, right? Do it and make sure that you're realistic about that. And so then it boils into the career and being in the career. And if I can find that, like, my idea of balance isn't 50% at home, 50%. My idea of balance is I can take my frustrations from work and bring them home in a healthy way. And I can talk about it, and my husband will listen to me and understand. And I like to have fun at work. So I find roles and jobs and people around me that I can joke around with and I can enjoy the environment. And to me, that's work life balance. It's not the time. It's not, getting obsessed with, can I go to the yoga class every day at noon? It's the balance for me.
Oh, I love this. I love this because one of the things that I continue to encounter I'm also a women's coach. So when I'm talking to women, when I'm working with them, one of the things that, especially women in leadership, that they tell me is they feel guilty about, you talked about hiring a nanny.
Uh-huh.
They feel guilty about, having a support system because there's this narrative that
Mm.
as a modern day working woman, you're supposed to be able to do it all and handle it all. And
Yeah.
so you mentioning how you're picking roles where you're having fun, at the same time you're coming home to your husband and
Yeah.
you have support around you. There's something there that a lot of women don't have that you have. And this is where I would love for you to share. How did you get to a state of mind where you felt that was okay and you bypassed the guilt?
It's I don't think it's an easy answer either direction, but I had to really know myself. So I am a type A dominant just personality, right? And I'll be honest, I I think it's healthier for my kids, for my
Mhm.
outlet to be at work and not dominating their lives. Because if I were a woman who didn't work outside the home and I was raising them, I would program manage and lead them through life, and
Mm.
they would probably be miserable failures because they wouldn't be independent, because I would be dominating in that space. And I was a latchkey kid. Both of my parents worked. I grew up in a little river town in West Virginia. We learned independence.
Mm.
Our parents were working. I have a younger brother. All the kids in our town, two working parents. The kids ran the town, right? It's the summertime. We are out. Nobody knows where we are, but it was amazing, and we had this independence, and I think there's so much value in that. And it was so I thought, wow, I got a lot of value out of that. It
Mm.
really created who I am. And I recognized my kids do not need a mom who is going to, I'm doing better by them, by giving them the care at home from a nanny who can just love them and let them do the things that they, are going to do, and me go work because that's my strength. And so I do have feel guilt sometimes. It's your elementary school kid comes home and says, "Hey, John's mom was here for the Valentine's Day party. Why weren't you here?"
Yeah.
And you feel that twinge. But you have to just say, well, I'm really happy that John's mom was able to be there, and maybe John's mom was able to take off work. Which party would you like me to be at? And I would even have those discussions with my kids. Like, I have three of them. So, hey, Reed, it would be great if I could do your Halloween parties. That makes sense, but I'm probably going to not be able to do the Christmas party, so maybe Valentine's with Veronica, right? And I also used it as discussions with them. What's the priority for them? What did they want? And sometimes I had to cancel,
Yeah.
right? It's also teaching the kids a little bit about disappointment and how to handle it. And so it's not easy, but I would say know yourself and what is best for you, best for your family, best for your friends. And then you just literally have to kick down the guilt because it's going to be there. I can't tell you a way to keep it away. It's just going to be there.
I love this. I love this because this is what we call relatability, right? So a lot of women will see you and say, "Well, someone's got it." Well, of course, someone's got it, right? And then hearing your own real experience and how you're still navigating it and
Yeah.
still moving forward, I think it's incredible.
Yeah,
I,
I mean, even to this day, it's navigating it, and it's
Mhm.
making sure that you're home for the important things, but you miss some of it, and that's okay too.
That's okay. That's okay, ladies. That's okay. Okay, so there's so many things that you've talked about. I just want us to go a little bit deeper. Let's move into cybersecurity now,
Mhm.
because this is an industry that there's so many words that I can use to describe it. I've been in the industry for close to 8 to 10 years now, and one of the key thing that keeps coming into that we're seeing now
Yeah,
is the stress of the industry, the threats that never stop, the detections that we need to create. So, how do you ground yourself as a leader in this industry, given the noise and
yeah.
fatigue that's going on? Yeah.
I'm going to bring that back to I have a solid team of people.
Mm,
And what does that mean? It doesn't mean bad things aren't going to happen. It doesn't mean that, it's Friday night and we're on the phone dealing with an incident that happened. But there are a couple of key things. One, knowing that I can depend on them and they can depend on me. So you have to build that team. You've got to build the relationship and the trust. You also have to know that you can get on the call and have a little bit of fun in the middle of the worst thing. You have to keep your sense of humor, and then you have to take care of each other.
yeah.
Right. So this is a matter. I'll never forget. I'm in a couple of groups of, hundreds of CISOs. And one of the CISOs went through a very public, very big company incident all over the news. Everything is happening. And in the channels, everybody was offering support to him. Like, hey, dude. And the two big pieces of advice, and this is amazing, were
Mhm.
drink a lot of water and take vitamin C and vitamin D because you're not going to see the sun for a while. And so it was literally like, nobody was saying like, hey, call this and have you looked at that? It was take care of
Yeah.
yourself, but in the most small way, right? Not make sure you still go on your run. Don't forget about, no, drink water, take vitamin C and vitamin D. And so there is a lot of stress, but again, lots of jobs have stress. Here's the other perspective that I put it in.
Mm,
I have a great job with a good salary.
mm,
I have flexibility in my job enough so that I can go to some events. What I am not is what my parents grew up. My parents were hourly workers who had zero flexibility. They lived paycheck to paycheck. And so I truly value and appreciate where I am and what I have. And when I put it into that perspective and think, yeah, I do have the ability that I could take a day off. I could make it to the Valentine party. Well, guess what? The mom who's working at Walmart can't do that. So you want to think about real stress in life. I can pay my mortgage. I have healthy kids. So I do take time to reflect on the really good things. Even though when you're in the middle of that incident and somebody's breathing down your neck or it's really bad, guess what? You're still paying your mortgage. You're still, you're still going to get through this. So I think putting things into perspective is really important for us.
I agree. I oftentimes what I come to see is perspective is pretty much a huge part
Yeah.
of having a life of peace and one filled with chaos.
I can't say it's peaceful.
I appreciate the honesty. So,
Three teenagers, there's no peace.
and it's so interesting that you say that, and I cannot say it's peaceful because what I'm learning from talking with CISOs and all of that stuff is even with the noise, you find a way to normalize that and find your footing with it to be able to show up every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that because we did an unofficial survey just chatting with other practitioners.
Okay.
And one of the things that came up was, well, senior leadership is so far up that they don't get the day-to-day pressures of
Yeah.
the lower level, the operations team. And
Mhm.
so there's this almost kind of perception that there's a disconnect. And I want to hear from you because I'm glad that we're having this conversation so people can see who you are behind the title is first of all, what's your, I would love to get your perspective on that. And second of all is you're leading a team. So how do you show up with presence where they know that you get it?
I do think there is a disconnect, and I think there always will be a somewhat of a disconnect because you forget,
Mm,
right? You forget the pressure that people that you felt when you were in the role that they're feeling. So how do you help that, and what are the things that you can do to make it better? One, I think you should build a culture within your team where people feel comfortable challenging you.
Mm,
And this is a really tough one for a lot of people. And I actually have to say this out loud to my teams because I am confident. I am very dominating in my speech. I will make
yeah.
statements that I mean as questions. So I will be in the middle of saying something and I'll say, and by the way, I mean this as a question, even though I said it as a statement. And I tell people, challenge me, push back
Mm,
on me. And then I have to live it out. When they do challenge me, I have to say like, great, this is awesome. This is a great discussion. So you have to live that. You have to
mm,
really do that. And I have to do it every day. Every day I have to tell myself, okay, ask a question instead of making a statement. And then I get caught up and I'm excited. I'm making statements and I have to realign and say to everybody, challenge that, challenge the statement that I just made. So that's a very, very important thing to do with your team so that they can ask you questions, they can feel comfortable. And that's your directs, even people who are, reporting several levels down. A piece of advice that I got, oh man, probably 8 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, from someone who was coaching executives and we were in leadership was that part of your job is the presence.
yes.
And when I was commuting, so I work from home now, I travel a lot, but I was commuting in for my job every day. They said, imagine that you're in the parking garage and you're mad because you just got a call from the school and your kid forgot their lunch at home again. And so you get out of the car and you're just irritated and you slam the door and you're like, God, and someone sees you. They're thinking in their head, uh-oh, what's Summer mad about? I have a meeting with her at 10 o'clock. Is she upset about X, Y, Z? And so I think about that. When I show up, I have to show up. And so you have to get your game face on. Now, the key is to do it in a genuine way. So you can't be fake and you
Mm,
can't be always for folks, there was a character named Pollyanna a long time ago. Everything was wonderful. You can't be Pollyanna-ish. You want to be genuine. So
mm,
it's okay. I put my game face on and I would think about that. Sometimes I would use the drive to work and sometimes I have to use like my morning coffee as, all right, it's game time. We got to get in there and put the right foot forward, but it's also okay to start the meeting and say, "Man, how's everybody doing? Can you believe my kid forgot their lunch again? It's like the fourth time this month." And so you can be real
mm,
and do it, but you actually have to be intentional about how you do that. And so that presence is a real thing and it can be exhausting. And I think that's just something to think about, but it's really important to show up for your people.
mm. There's so many good things that you're talking about here, especially now where we're in the age of AI. And so having human presence means way more now
Yeah.
than years prior. And I want to talk a little bit, just kind of dive in a little bit that, but when you're showing up every day with presence and you're in situations where you're triggered out of that, right?
Oh my gosh, I have a great example of this.
Please tell us.
So I believe that working remotely and working from home. So I'm 100% remote, even though I travel a lot. So it's kind and I'm in offices a lot. I have noticed that I'm already a low patience person. Like I'm a driver. Like let's get this task done. Let's move. Working from home and being able to do my own context switching, make my own schedule, do my own thing
Mm,
has exacerbated my impatience. And I was having an offsite with my team. We was an on-site offsite. We were at an office. Everybody came to the same office and we were working together. And man, was I triggered. I was like, I just want to get this work done. Why are we, it just, I was feeling my impatience. And, I just actually had to verbalize it. I talked to the team, and I think this is part of the trust building where I said, "Man, I'm really sorry. I know I'm being impatient with this," and I talk about it. But I also used it as time to talk to some of my colleagues, and recognize that this new way of working has changed something in me, and my preparation now for being with the people on my team physically has to be a little different. And so you also have to be forgiving to yourself. But I think that the honesty is important. But wow, remote work has changed me.
I love that because, again, oftentimes we forget that the human in us will come out.
Yeah.
And so there's this fear of what if people see that human in me? Am I going to be judged? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you might be. And frankly, then that like hit it head on and say, gosh, I'm more exhausted than normal because I'm used to being at home. And so it's just a different and then also remembering the people on your team, your colleagues, they may be experiencing it a very different way. They might be so excited and energized to be in the group, and then they want to talk and they want to socialize, and then that exacerbates how I'm feeling, like I just want to get the task done. So it, I think it's changed our dynamics as a workforce, and it's something that we should talk about and figure out how we're going to navigate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And have honest conversations on what we can do to still show up, even with all of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. And oh gosh, this is so good. There's another aspect that I want to kind of focus on here. So you've talked about creating psychological safety and trust within your teams. Have you had a situation come up where someone on your team had, an issue and stuff like that, that probably was triggered by that, a lack of psychological safety? And how did you handle that? Because there's a lot of people, leaders who I've spoken to that this is something they try to do every day, but they're still not there. And so there's this self-judgment of, am I even good enough to be in this role? Am I enough? So how did you handle that?
This is an everyday having to work on it, and it changes over time. But I'll give you an example that has it was a struggle that I had to go through. I hired someone, and she came from, so I've been in really small companies, right? So all three of the self-driving companies are really small. So I was in a small company, and I hired someone who came from a very large organization, and she was coming in great skill set. And over the course of time, I saw that she was struggling with pace, with decision making, and it was not unusual to think about that coming out of a very large organization where the structure is different. And I saw that, I recognized it. I hired someone who was working for me, and that person was then reporting into that person. Okay, so there was a layer between us. But I spoke to her leader and said, "Hey, I think this person is really struggling in these areas." And later on, that person, the lead came back to me and said, "She's still struggling. We're really struggling here." And I ended up having to go to the employee and have the really tough discussion and said, look, there are a couple of paths we could take here. One is it's been a while. We've gone through this. Here are the examples, very specific examples of areas where it's just not working. So we could go on a formal performance improvement path, which is one direction. But here's the bottom line: you're really bright. You have a tremendous skill set. I think this is the wrong place for you. It's not that there's anything wrong with you. It's that you and this place that I was at this small company, it's just not a fit. It's not a place where I see that you're going to thrive. And this is wild. And so I had already talked to HR and said, could we offer some runway and assistance, like take 6 weeks and search for another role, and we'll help you and we'll open networks to you. It was a really, really awful discussion. It was necessary, and I really felt like in that moment, I broke that safety that they felt, you know. Later on, the lesson was that, she saw that it was right. She did move on to another role. It was great, but in that moment, it was really tough. And here was the other part. It does affect the rest of the team as well,
Mhm.
because then there's a concern. There is oh my gosh, if this could happen to this person, could it happen to me? And so you have to, build the trust and maintain the trust. You're going to break the trust sometimes, and then you've got to work to build it back. It's brutal, but honestly, that's why we're in the leadership role. So we need to do that. If you can find a way to do it without breaking the trust, it's even better, and making them feel safe. But sometimes you have to cross that line for the good of the person and the good of the organization.
Yeah, this is such an amazing, amazing thought because, again, it brings it back to this human first, recognizing that you yourself, yes, you're a leader, yes, you're leading a vision, but you're human, and there's certain times you show up where you don't feel like you should have 100%.
Yeah.
Normalize that and keep moving forward.
Yeah. And you have to give yourself some grace and understand that, and you're going to do it incorrectly or say the thing that, and that's also just a matter of owning it. You have to own it and say, "Oh, I didn't mean to say it that way," and
Yeah.
move on. Yeah.
I love that. I just something that I'm picking up about you. So you come to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you come to me as someone who is unapologetic about owning yourself and all parts of yourself and being upfront about this is the situation. Now what do we do? Did I get that correctly?
Oh yeah, I am. I am. And the other thing I was going to say, we talked about this. There's the chaos and there's the stress. You really just need to learn to embrace it and almost enjoy it, if that makes any sense. Like you just have to figure out how to enjoy it. And you get on the call with your coworkers and you're like, how's your day going? And it's like, whew. I actually said in a meeting, it was the end of day yesterday, and my leads and I were meeting. It was a 4 o'clock meeting. And I got on the call and I said, I don't know how I can be so exhausted when I accomplished so little today.
What did I say?
And they laughed and they were like, yeah, I feel that way sometimes too. And I said, how is this possible?
Oh
For
my God.
one of those days. And you're like, man.
I love the honesty. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I like to have conversations with leaders because, again, we would not know about you. We would not know this side to you. Just
Yeah.
seeing their title, and I think it's great that people see that. Hey, there's a human first behind all of this, right? At the end of the day. So let's talk a little bit about normalizing the stress because one of the debate that we're seeing right now is should people in cybersecurity in general have more human resilience? So there's a lot of cyber resilience work going on.
Mhm.
From that perspective, do you think that there is a need for the humans in cybersecurity to have more of training or equipment or tools that can help them deal with the stress and the pressure that comes with making decisions in this kind of field every day, just like they do in the military? Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of the challenge is cybersecurity for so long and today still is not understood by all executives, right? So even your first team, your other executives, just like I don't understand all of finance, they don't understand cybersecurity. And so when you don't have the other people in the room who really understand it, that can cause problems with your psychological safety. And so I don't want to judge. I think it depends on the situation. Do you have a team that you can depend on? Do you have a team that you like your team one, your counterparts in the company? Can you talk to them? Can you depend on them? Is there an understanding? And that's going to differ by company. Some people I think feel the stress because they are getting a finger pointed at saying you're responsible for this, and that's a really tough situation. So would resilience help more? There are probably techniques and tactics. I would not want to work at one of those places.
Absolutely.
And so that's another, like, that's the choice. That's the life choice. So if you are in one of those places, you're definitely going to have to figure out a different tactic. And how are you going to manage that stress? I don't actually have super good advice for that because I'm not in that situation. But yes, you would definitely need to find a way to manage it. Because you don't often have the luxury of saying, I'm just going to go find somewhere else,
It's true.
right? I mean, the job market's been crazy difficult. It's softening a little bit now. So it's not a matter of just saying go find another job. uh Find a way that you're going, and then that would be where you start to feel like, the mom or dad who is in an hourly job and can hardly make, the mortgage. So that becomes that really human element. How are they managing that stress? What are they doing? And we need to do that as well.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you said, um, I probably wouldn't want to work there because I was talking to someone, another CISO, and the word he used was run. He just he said I would run, maybe like I would even want to work there if I see stuff like that. And
Yeah,
I think it's not just about recognizing it, but it's also being honest with yourself.
yeah. It is, and it's easy to say run. I mean, it is, and I mean, I want them to run. Don't get me wrong, but I also recognize they may not have that. They
That's
may
true.
be in a single income, family situation. They may be, dealing with stress at home, that an aging parent that they have to take care of. So they can't dedicate the time to finding something else. So in that case, you have to find a different way of handling that stress. Again, the better team you have, the better you're going to feel. Because if you can't have your first team or your, other executives, at least have a really good team for yourself that you can retreat to and have that home at
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really does make a difference in everything, especially when you're at work and how you show up. When you have that safe haven, if you want to put that word, where you can
Yes.
retreat back to.
And it could be lots of different places at that work. But if you can build it within your team, if you can have it with team one, I mean, the ideal situation is you have it everywhere. It's very rare. It would be very rare to have that.
Summer, I don't know about you, but I feel like we can keep going on, and we're just coming to the hour here. So I like to ask this question, okay? If you had a magic wand, like
Mhm.
a blank check, and you had the chance to fix one thing
Whew.
in yes,
In cybersecurity
in
or
in cybersecurity, because if I say live, I know that's even going to be broader, but in cybersecurity as a whole, one magic wand, what would that be?
I use this principle with my team, and it's nail the fundamentals. So I would wave the wand and make the things that are so fundamental easier. Asset management. I would make it so that we all know what our assets are, where they are, what their configurations are. If there's it's the fundamentals, because quite frankly, if we can fix that, and hopefully we're going to be seeing some more of that, maybe with some of the AI automation,
Mm.
orchestration activities, then we could focus and do some really cool things on the new challenges. But I've been in information assurance cybersecurity for over 20 years. We still haven't nailed the fundamentals. So that would be what my magic wand.
I love that. I love that. So everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed today's discussion. I told you, Summer is someone that I said the more you look, the less you see, and the reverse. Okay, and based on what we talked about, there's so many things that Summer has shared, from building one of the best teams to having fun and making sure that you enjoy what you're doing. Summer, if people want to continue this conversation with you, where would you like them to reach out to you?
I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place. I'm really quiet on X. I'm actually pretty quiet on LinkedIn, but I do communicate with people messaging there. So reach out to Summer Fowler on LinkedIn.
Awesome. So, guys, all of Summer's details will be placed in the description box following this interview. But other than that, if you guys have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to Summer, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone. Summer, please hold on. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.